tell you how much I appreciate the fact that our show is still on in this market all these many years later. We've had a very good partnership, very good relationship, and I love the fact that you support the station and encourage you to do so even more. The good people that sponsor, the sponsors that you hear on the station, the shows on the station, progressive radio. There used to be like 100 stations. There are maybe 40 today nationwide, so you don't know how lucky you are to have a great station like WNYI, to have progressive talk all day long. And it's me, I'm Hartman and Stephanie Miller. I'm sorry I couldn't bring Stephanie with me this time. I don't know where she is.
Come back for a talk back.
Back in
like
LA.
we did back when at the theater.
Yeah, at the theater, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But I did want to particularly thank, is Chet here? No. Chet Weisgar, General Manager. Thank Connie for Connie was standing right there.
Where's she great to either?
For arranging this evening's get together. Greg, news director here. Greg, thank you so much for all the work that you do. And all of you remember Susan, former general manager. Bridget, who handles sales at the station.
You are good.
And I'll tell you a little bit about the book. The only reason I write books is so I can come back to Ithaca and drink Americana wine. So with Joe and Butch, we really want to thank them for being here too. What a wild time it's been, I got to tell you. For a talk show host, this has been like a pig in shit, you know. It's been the wildest of all the years. I'm sorry, Buffalo Books too. Thank you. I remember you were here last time. It's really great. But I've never seen a primary like this. It's been so crazy. And you know, for Democrats, we may be mixed up enough. But imagine if we were Republicans. Well, we'd have to deal with it. Starting with 17 crazy candidates. Not one of them qualified to be president of the United States. Like unthinkable that one of them might have become that. And now we end up with the craziest of all, right? Donald Trump as the front runner. Now I know he's a New Yorker. I don't mean to insult you, but I mean, this is a guy who would even insult the Pope. Right? It's bad enough that he insults Little Marco, Lion Ted,
yeah.
Right? But he suggested that the Pope wasn't a real Christian. And we were talking about one day on the show, you might have heard about, okay, who was he going to insult next after the Pope, right? And then somebody said, oh, did you see the latest tweet from Donald Trump that said, it took him 3 days to rise from the dead. I could have done it in 3 hours. Lazy Jesus, right? So Trump he'll stop at nothing. But you know, as funny as it is to watch him, it's really scary also. I mean, it's scary to the thought that this guy who has so much appeal to some blue-collar Democrats could end up being the Republican nominee. And here's a guy, I mean, who it's not just anti-New York values, I mean anti-American values, who would seriously try to deport 11, 12 million people, break up those families and send them all back, who seriously says we should let no Muslims into this country, who seriously says that women who choose for whatever reason not to carry a child to term or to exercise their right of choice and control over their own bodies should go to jail, go to prison, or pay a fine, whatever. The fact that it would be even seriously considered is frightening, I find, for this country and certainly for the Republican Party. And with all this effort to stop him, we can talk about this, I don't think it's going to succeed. I think he's going to be the nominee. And I mean, as a Democrat, I kind of like that, but also I'm afraid of it because what I found, like I was in Chicago about a month ago.
You guys hear okay back here? You hear okay? Yeah?
Can you?
It's a little loud back here.
Oh, okay.
Just move up, yeah.
All right, I'll just move up. I was in Chicago a little while ago and talking to some labor leaders out there, and what they're finding, and they're worried about this, is that there are people on the floor, like on the assembly floor, say, we're for Bernie, but Bernie doesn't get it. We're for Trump. And they keep talking to them, saying, no, you got to understand, this guy is really dangerous. By the way, this Tompkins County, right?
Yeah.
I just want to say, I feel the burn in Tompkins County. You probably know I'm the Bernie guy on CNN, and I'm proud to be for Bernie. I think he's a great candidate. I love Hillary too. I'll be for Hillary in a flash. I supported her over Obama in 2008, but Bernie's the best progressive candidate that I've seen, and I love what he stands for. I love his passion. I love the fact that he is driving the Democratic Party establishment crazy, and so. Everybody says, well, my heart's with Bernie, but my head is with Hillary. My first campaign was with Eugene McCarthy in 1968. My heart was with him, not with Hubert Humphrey, and I have followed my heart in politics ever since. So I'm following my heart as long as Bernie is in the race. So enough for the Republicans. Oh, I just want to say about the Trump thing, just to finish that thought. I think the efforts to dislodge Trump and deny him the nomination will fail. He'll be the nominee. But if they were to succeed, who do they get? They get Ted Cruz, right? I mean, is that... Lindsey Graham was right. The choice between the two is the choice between getting shot in the head or taking poison. And I think with either one of them, I believe it's going to be a disaster for the Republican Party. And what I love about our side this time is, so you've got Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, two great candidates, and they're debating, the whole thing is over which one is more progressive. Yeah, I've been waiting all my life to have that kind of debate, because usually it's a progressive who gets cast out of the party, like a Howard Dean or somebody, so that the establishment can take over. And this time, they're both vying to show their progressive credentials, which I think is great news, great progress, and we can't go wrong. Can't go wrong. So the big question now after, and those of you, I know you do, you listen every morning, you always talk about it. I think the big question now that I get all the time is, what should Bernie do now after New York, right? I got an interview in the car on the radio on the way up, and my answer was, he ought to do just what he's been doing. He's just continue to campaign. He's won 17 states. He's got over 1,100 delegates. There are another 14, 15 states to vote. And so I believe that this debate and this primary has been very, very healthy. It's been very good for Hillary. It's made her a stronger candidate. It's been very good for Bernie. It's made him a better candidate. And I think it's good for the Democratic Party. It's getting people excited. Think how boring. I gotta tell you, do you think CNN would pay any attention to the Democratic Party primary if there were not two candidates? Do you think they're gonna have a debate and just have Hillary on stage? No, there'd be no coverage at all. So this is getting people excited. It's bringing new people into the party. It's bringing independents into the party. And so I believe that every Democrat in every state should have the chance to vote, just like they did in 2008. And it was Hillary Clinton in 2008 who kept it going until June the 8th. Okay, we are at April 21. What's the hurry? There's no need to pull the plug on this thing. So as long as they're not getting ugly or nasty or personal, and by the way, I don't think they have. I mean, occasionally there's a little barb toss, but what the hell, it's a campaign. But for the most part, their differences have been on the issues, and that's totally legitimate. There are issues to raise against Bernie. Why isn't he better on guns? I wish he were. I mean, I'm disappointed in Bernie's position on the gun manufacturers and their liability. You could say, can Bernie really deliver on his promises? Is it really pie in the sky? Is it going to be too expensive? Those are all legitimate questions. And on Hillary, what about Iraq? What about Libya? What about the transcripts? What about her connections to Wall Street? Those are all legitimate questions, policy questions. So I think let this debate continue. We'll be much better off when every state has voted And the other reason I say that is because as the former state chair of California, I want the California primary to count this year, which it hasn't for years and years and years. So, and you know what? The other question I get all the time, oh, is the party ever going to be able to get back together? I mean, that's such nonsense. Of course we'll be together in November, just like we were in 2008. There'll be, Hillary said this, I really give her a lot of credit for this, in her acceptance speech or victory speech Tuesday night, she said there's a lot more that unites us than divides us. This party will pull together, especially against a Donald Trump or a Ted Cruz, and I believe with Hillary or Bernie, and one of those two guys, we will not only hold on to the White House. By the way, I forget, somebody told me this morning, think about it. We haven't had more than 8 years in a row of a Democratic president for a long time. They had 8 years of Reagan and 4 years of Daddy Bush. We haven't had a Democrat succeed a Democrat for a long time. We haven't had a progressive Supreme Court since 1971. There's so much at stake. So I believe we not only hold on to the White House, we take back the Senate. We need 6 seats in the Senate. And I believe, nobody else is saying this, that we're going to take back the House. We need 30 seats to take back the House. That's a lot. But there are 435 members of Congress. And in 2010, when John Boehner became Speaker, Republicans won 65 seats. So, hell, if Boehner can win 65, we ought to be able to win 30, especially if you got a Donald Trump or a Ted Cruz at the top of the ticket. So we'll be together in November, no doubt about that. And that is where I come to what this is all about. Don't be afraid of the title. It's not a slam at Barack Obama. I see the book as 3 things. But first of all, this is the book that Bernie Sanders wrote the blurb for. See it right at the top. And on the back, there's this blurb. This is the book that on both Meet the Press and Face the Nation, This Week on ABC, the host Chuck Todd and George Stephanopoulos held up the book to Bernie Sanders and said, do you agree with this book? And this is the book that in one of the Democratic debates, Hillary Clinton turned to Bernie Sanders and said, you don't appreciate President Obama. You even wrote the foreword to a book called Buyer's Remorse. Well, let me tell you something. I was sitting,
Hi.
You talk about an oh shit moment. I was sitting on the set at CNN with Anderson Cooper watching the debate so we could talk about it afterwards when Hillary said that. And Anderson looked at me and said, WTF? And the first question he asked when we came on the air afterwards was, Bill, what's up with this book of yours? At which point I was ready to send Hillary flowers and say,
He just sent you.
thank you for the sale.
Book sales.
Right. No, for book sales, they've been, it's really helped. But I see this book as 3 things. First of all, it's a report card. And people ask me, why did you write a book in any way critical of Barack Obama? My flip answer is, because he asked me to. President Obama said when he was running as a candidate, I want you to hold me accountable. I've heard him in the White House briefings, which I go to every day. I've heard him say, I want you to hold me accountable. Everybody in Washington, the lobbyists, the members of Congress, I want you to hold me accountable. So I did. I mean, so it's kind of like a report card. 7 years out, what did he accomplish? And I give him, he did, let's face it, you look at his report card, a lot of great things, and a lot of things where I think he let us down, disappointed us. So first thing I do is give him credit for all the good stuff, and then I also point out some of the areas where I think he has let us down, where we didn't expect him. We didn't expect, for example, Barack Obama to let all these Wall Street crooks walk without any accountability at all. This week, Goldman Sachs paid a $5 billion fine. Yeah, they agreed to pay it because they acknowledged that they were knowingly selling worthless securities to people, and not one Wall Street executive has been held responsible. That was the president's decision. I didn't expect a president who would pursue charges against 7 journalists for reporting on leaks that they received from people who work for the CIA or whatever. I didn't expect a president who would consider Edward Snowden, who told us what was going on with the NSA, a crook, basically, and force him out of the country. And I didn't expect a president who also let George Bush and Dick Cheney off the hook for what I consider war crimes, with the torture, and just basically say, we're not going to pursue. And by the way, back to the Wall Street, letting them off the hook. Do you realize during the savings and loan crisis back in the 80s, there were 5,400 investigations of savings and loan executives. There were, I think it was 1,200 prosecutions, and 800 savings and loan executives went to jail. And this time, they all got off. So I show the good and the bad. It's a report card. Secondly, it's a wake-up call. And the wake-up call is, we're about to elect another Democratic president. And we've got to remember that too often, what happens is we elect Democratic presidents and then they decide they've got to govern from the middle, and they forget who got them there, and they forget their base. And it happened with Bill Clinton. What did we get from Bill Clinton? We got a lot of good stuff, but we also got welfare reform, so-called welfare reform. We got the repeal of Glass-Steagall. We got Don't Ask, Don't Tell, horrible policy. We got the Defense of Marriage Act, which finally the Roberts Supreme Court has invalidated. And we got the 94 crime bill, which has become a big issue in this campaign because there are more young black people than in prison for extended prison terms for non-violent drug crimes. Thanks. We have more people in prison, as Bernie Sanders points out, than any other nation on the planet. Most of it because of the 94 crime bill signed by Bill Clinton. So that's the wake-up call is, hello, we've got another challenge coming up. And then, finally, it's sort of a call to arms. And that's what Bernie's blurb is all about. And I'll end with that. And the call to arms is that we've got to recognize we've got a job to do, which is not only to elect another new Democratic president, but then to hold his or her feet to the fire to make sure they don't feel they have to govern from the middle, they don't run to the middle, they don't forget us. We've got to keep the pressure on. We've got to rally in front of the Congress, in front of the White House, and hold his or her feet to the fire. What I want is, and that's what Bernie's calling for in the blurb, is that when those members of Congress look out on this Washington Mall, they don't see 10,000 Tea Party people out there. They see 10,000 liberals, 10,000 progressive, 10,000 Democrats saying, you know, we want a $15 minimum wage. We want a jobs bill, $3 infrastructure. We want action on climate change. We want single-payer health care, whatever the issue is. So we've got our job to do, and Bernie says the president has his or her job to do. We've got to keep the pressure on, and the president has to rally us to the task. So here's Bernie's blurb. Bill Press makes the case why, long after taking the oath of office, the next president of the United States must keep rallying the people who elected him or her on behalf of progressive causes. That is the only way real change will happen. So that, I think there too, President Obama hasn't done enough of that using the bully puppet. So the president's got his or her job to do, we've got our job to do. So you think after this election you're going to be able to sit back and just relax? No. That's when the hard work just starts. So anyhow, great to be here. Thank you for listening. Any questions or comments or whatever? Susan,
expecting, yeah.
see you next time.
Bye.
I have a question.
All right. Yes.
One of the two of them is going to be the nominee.
Yep.
What would your ideal role be for the other one in trying to move the progressive agenda forward?
Well, if we go back to 2008, Bernie could make Hillary Secretary of State.
But that doesn't really move the progressive agenda forward necessarily when you're dealing with foreign governments so much.
Right. No, I don't. First of all, I don't think Bernie would want to be part of a Clinton administration. Not that he doesn't respect her, but I think he feels he could get more done in the Senate. I mean, Bernie will be a force in the U.S. Senate now after this round, whereas before nobody even knew kind of who he was. Bernie will be, I think, a force in American politics, and to me, that's the real question: is how do you harness all this energy? You know, you saw in last month, Bernie raised $46 million. $46 million.
Yeah.
Hillary raised $29.3 million. And the average contribution is $26. It's even gone down. And he's raising more money, and the average contribution is going down. So to me, that's the question. You can't, one would hope, we don't, having stirred up all that passion, that it doesn't just disappear. Now, Howard Dean tried it, and he's got an organization, but I mean, they took a vote, they endorsed Bernie, but I don't see that they're doing that much. President Obama kept OFA, Organizing for America, going, supporting some of his legislation. But Bernie wants to do more than that. I mean, Bernie wants to, what I love, one thing I love, he really wants to shake up the Democratic Party. And I think he's right. I think the Democratic Party has gotten fat and lazy, and they forgot who they represent for the most part. The Democratic Party is no longer really the party of the people. I think they are as close to Wall Street as the Republican Party is. So I look forward to talking to Bernie about how we might do that. But so I guess in answer to your question, I don't think he'll be part of the administration, but I think he'll be leading, I guess, the charge on the administration. Let's assume it's Hillary, right? Not him. If it's not him, he'll be leading the charge to accomplish the goals that he set forth in the campaign that the American people embraced, and many of which she has now embraced.
Because either one of them has to really energize their supporters for us to be successful in November.
Absolutely. Yeah, and by the way, Bernie will. In fact, and I'll tell you this little story, is it really has not been reported yet, but Bernie was the biggest supporter of progressive talk radio in the Senate, or is, I should say, because he's still in the Senate. So Tom Hartman and I used to meet with him occasionally to talk about how we could get more stations around the country and get the owners of the networks to put more progressive voices on the air. And I was talking to Bernie one day, and I said to him, now Bernie, what's this rumor that you're thinking about running for president? And so we talked about it, and he said, look, I think that 2016 this is by the way, 2014, in the early spring, winter even, end of winter of 2014, and maybe around March. So, but he said, I think in 2016, progressive issues have to be the centerpiece of the presidential debate. Somebody's got to carry these issues, and if nobody else will do it, I'll do it. I'm thinking I will do it. And at the time, everybody thought Elizabeth Warren was going to run, right? And so I said to Bernie, and he also said he would never do anything to get in the way of a Democrat being elected president. He would not run as an independent. He would not be a Ralph Nader. So these people that last week were saying, no, he's another Ralph Nader. It just pisses me off. And Bernie from the beginning has made it clear he's not going to do that. So I said to Bernie, well, you know, It's not crazy. But you know, if you're going to do this, if you're even thinking about it, you really should get together some people who've been active in presidential campaigns before, and talk to them about it, get their advice. So Bernie turns to me and says, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Would you organize that?" And within 3 weeks, April the 9th, 2014, we had a little dinner party at my house on Capitol Hill with Bernie and Jane and Michael Briggs as his press secretary. And I had put together 12 strategists who had been active in presidential campaigns. And the Bernie Sanders campaign for president was launched in my living room. So every time I see him now up there, I think, holy shit. Little did we know. Carol made beef stew. It's the best beef stew ever made, ever tasted. Look what happened.